Hello everyone, I'm here to do a new video on the new hot issue that arose after my last video about 9/11. This information that I'm talking to you about can be verified on the FBI Gov websites, which I will be posting links after. But my point of this video is just to summarize the information that I'm understanding. Today, or I should say about last week, the FBI has opened up a website explaining this new facial recognition software that they'll be using on the public street cameras, such as traffic lights and walkways, anywhere you see a camera. And they'll be implementing that facial recognition system to mugshots such as those from the DMV. And what this does is it's able to compare an actual face with someone's actual driving record or identification. So if you have a driver's license, they're able to identify you without you even knowing, with this software, and just you being in front of a traffic light or being in a city park. So wherever you are, they'll be comparing a physical face, facially recognizing those from DMV. Now the FBI website indicates only photos within the criminal justice system, but let me clarify that it includes DMV photos. Partly because what I have in front of me, as I'm showing here on the video, is an actual printout from a criminal justice system network. It's called CGIS 2000 Response. And on the bottom shows an actual photo from DMV. And here's my license. So everything on my license is the same as that reported from the law enforcement. I was dealing through the course of a discovery, of being charged for calling a federal official a name. I got this in the process. So what I'm reporting to you is that this website has been deceptive, because they have access to DMV photos. So let me go on. This facial recognition system, called the Next Generation Identification, costs $1 billion. Keep in mind, there's been no budgeting issues like Social Security. I mean, they were about to deny Social Security people benefits and old senior citizens and my grandma, 2 months payment because they couldn't come up with a budget. But they have no problem budgeting this, and all equipment such as the databases and spy networks that they use on those laptops, such as the Index, which I explained in my 9/11 video, which is to connect all the municipality towns and share local town ordinance. Domestic disputes between husband and wife, can finally be captured while you're getting a ticket in another state. Your children associated with you, and the problems with school and that they were smoking weed can be accessed by any jurisdiction, small law enforcement, whether you're in California or New Jersey. It's all one shot, one police department. And actually they have a database named just that, one DOG. It's exactly what it is. It's the, pulling everybody's information, social security numbers, and making it available to billions of law enforcement who are not always working within the law. And, the list just goes on, bailing out banks on top of that, which is about $700 billion. So anyway, and they had no problem. Nobody mentioned anything about budgeting problems with that, only when, citizens are having trouble. So going back, this facial recognition system is now going to capture faces from traffic lights and compare them to the photos at DMV. And that's called in brief, NGI, which is Next Generation Identification Technology, and that's explained from their news article they posted at their website. Now there's another technology in conjunction with this. It's going to be called trapwire. Now I'll explain the difference between the next generation identification and trapwire. Trapwire is basically a database. It's actually recording every time a specific individual is identified through these DMV photos and captured in public in one area and the next. Trapwire records it. And that's really the only difference. Trapwire is just simply recording the events while the actual technology is identifying each specific individual. Now I know all this sounds superstitious, like something from a sci-fi show. But again, I'm able to verify everything I'm explaining is actually coming from the government sites themselves about a week and a half ago. And this is nothing new. I mean, this is nothing that we haven't seen in the past 10 months. You say, well, 10 months? What do you mean, 10 months? Well, I mean, they haven't really established violations against the law, the past contradicting ones. For instance, the NDAA, which is the National Defense Authorization Act. I'm going to read you the section of this Act 1021, If you look on your screen, I'm reading you exactly what it says, including the power to detain by armed forces any person, including the U.S. citizen, that are engaged in hostility against the U.S. and its coalition partners, anyone who commits a belligerent act against the U.S. and its coalitions, such enemy force under the law of war, without a trial until the end of the hostility. Now, they're using vague terms. If you were driving too fast, that's hostile. That means if you go through a red light, you were being hostile. And you should be pretty scared of this, because we could be talking right now and they've probably been capturing average citizens like you and me and detaining them, and nobody knows where they are. I mean, it could be your older son, it could be your grandparents, and you might just go to the local police and put up a lost persons case. And everything would just seem normal, like everybody reporting this person lost. But there's nothing here making the government liable and telling you that this person has been retained. I mean, they could very well kill him, too. And everybody just goes on like this is no big deal. It was past the beginning of after Christmas. And 2 months after that, they passed the Federal Restriction Buildings Ground Improvement Act. And I'm going to read you a section from that as well, from the actual site. And it's Section 1B. It says, of any building or grounds that the President or other protected persons by the Secret Service will be temporarily visiting. So, if there was a peaceful process going on, as stated in the Constitution, it is a direct violation of that. So these two laws basically contradict each other, but I can guarantee you the H.R. 347 restricted buildings and will overrule any Constitution. Now think about it, right? Our own government has made protesting basically illegal. And who knows what can happen in these protests. Maybe somebody do something deliberately in hostility that they'll have to use the NDAA for. And so the rebellion pattern continues going on. I mean, they now want to censor the internet by making up an excuse that they want to protect copyright music, stuff they don't know or listen to. And when the sites got up in arms by blacking out their sites because there was a clause in that bill suggesting that they would be fined, they come up with another excuse that we're being attacked via computers. You know, ones and zeros, digital ones and zeros are just as bad as the deaths of 9/11. Trying to say that that's equal to terrorism. And now we're at the point where they now have installed all these cameras everywhere. I mean, everywhere you go, you see a camera. Right here in my local town. And they're finally going to execute these face recognition system softwares and compare it to database mugshots and DMV photos. So now we're at the point where the government is now just don't care. You know, it's just going to tell us that they're going to break the law and record people without their consent and identify them without an arrest. And so what got the ball rolling, you know, for the own country to rebel against its citizens in the last 10 months? Well, I split it in 3 parts. The first part being the citizens, you guys. Partly because it seems like everybody's being distracted by these Apple iPods and text phones. And they're not really noticing what's really taking place. And people are being distracted by the president campaign race. And none of those bozos are talking about any of these issues at hand. They don't want you to know about it. You know, they want to give a distorted image, hoping everybody's stupid to either vote for one or the other. I also notice lately people like to stay within their interests and don't want to discover anything new. I mean, look at the 90s and 80s, we just had cable. It's not like our favorite show was on every day. And I can guarantee you if they found out the government was passing laws against the Constitution, they go AWOL, ape crazy, throwing stones at the White House and everything. And today, we just a bunch of pansies laying around, talking to each other, nonsense. And that's what I blame. I blame the people. Because, you know, you're a bunch of sheep, a bunch of lazy sheep. You know, you don't pay attention until it actually goes into effect. And partly, I hope it does go into effect, because everything you're going to hear, you know, it's not like I didn't tell you in advance. And the other 2 elements I'm blaming is the corruption of corporate companies, you know, backrubbing the government, taking all their tax money. And the third being the government. So now I have a question I want to ask my listeners is that all these laws that were passed against the Constitution the last 10 months, what do they have all in common? Well, I believe the short period of time represents the fact that we're going to be in a serious financial collapse recession, and I would estimate about 90% of the people will lose their jobs. Now, that's not so far-fetched, because when you look at the first law against the Constitution passed, the NDAA, which is detaining people for doing belligerent and hostility acts, if you think about it, 90% of the people ain't going to be twiddling their thumbs and saluting a flag at home. They'll be up in Washington protesting, and I don't think it's going to be peaceful. So that's where detaining people, and think about it, there's not enough judges give due process to 90% of those that all lost their jobs. And what a perfect opportunity, too, to declare a peaceful protest a felony crime, deterring anybody from following the Constitution during these screw jobs the government did on our people, and detaining those people as well, and putting them in the dungeon. And then what about the bystanders that will be filming this and posting it on Facebook? So anybody who's still patriotic and brainwashed by the government, don't see the government rebelling against its citizens, those people will be in violation too, and they'll be thrown in the dungeon. But I'll guarantee you one thing, though. They'll certainly be recording you and identifying you, and they'll be throwing those people in the dungeon as well. So, there you have it. A lot of people get mad when I trash the government, but if you want to compete with me with it's the best country in the whole world, then you have to support it, I'm convinced, on fact, not superstitious, that our country is junk. It's not all that better than Germany,